Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Trino Community Broadcast, our first episode here in 2024. And we'll be taking a look back at everything that happened in Trino in 2023. My name is Cole Bowden. I'm one of the Trino developer advocates, joined by Manfred Moser, as always, and with our guest, Martin Traverso, who should also be a familiar face to those of you in the Trino community. How are we doing today, Manfred and Martin?
Good, good. I'm wondering, are we going to do more of these episodes than last year? Are we going to beat it?
That's a good question. I think we had 10 last year, so if we keep doing them monthly, we will be on pace.
Yeah, maybe we have to accelerate that speed.
There's
lots of topics, but you'll see there's lots going on. So.
Yeah, it's a beatable target.
Yeah, so lots been going on. But before we recap what's happening or what happened in 2023, let's go quickly and check back on our last two releases of last year, 2023, and our first release of 2024 already. So those are Trino 434, 35, and 36. 34 is all the way back in November. Feels like ages ago. So we got a bit lazy over the Christmas New Year time. Oh, actually, that's not true. We didn't get lazy. We just didn't have time to cut releases and did other things. But you'll find out more about that. So what did we have happening? We shipped the filter clause for list ag, and the BigQuery connector got JSON columns, read support, and delete statements. Those were the highlights in 434. 35 was a lot about fun.
I was going to say 435 had the big thing. It was one of the features we'd put on the roadmap at Trino Summit. So proof that the roadmap works is the JSON table function, right?
Yeah, this is a complicated feature. Martin knows more about that. It's actually fully working now in 436 because there was some little mini bug. And there's still no documentation because this Manfred Moser here hasn't gotten around to write the documentation. But there's test cases for those of you, and it's like following the SQL spec. But it's pretty intense feature. Do you know? Can you tell us a bit more about that, Martin?
No, yeah, I was going to say the good thing is that standard feature in SQL, so you can get documentation. You can look at documentation from other databases and get a sense of how it works, how to use it, and so on. It's a very powerful feature. It's JSON table is a table function. It's behaves as a table function. You don't invoke it like a normal table function, but it behaves as one, and it allows you to take JSON documents and crack them open, parse them, break them up into separate columns and so on, which is something you could somehow do with the existing functions for manipulating JSON, but it was very cumbersome. So with this, it looks a lot more natural. At maybe today, there was a Stack Overflow question where someone asked something a while ago, and then I realized that it can be done now with JSON table and much more elegantly. So I'll see if I can get you a link, Manfred, so you can show it later.
Yeah, that'll be cool. Yeah, it's basically interesting because obviously with Trino you can query things like Elasticsearch, but now as of 436 also OpenSearch, even better than newer versions, Elasticsearch and the newer OpenSearch releases. So we have a new connector for that, and those often contain columns that are just some random JSON, and with that JSON table function you can cleanly get whole rows and columns of data out. It's pretty cool. The other thing we did on 435 is performance planning improvements on Delta Lakes, improved the reliability on Google Cloud Storage readings. That's one of the aspects of all the work that that David has worked on, revamping the Trino file system, so the access to remote file systems on object storage systems, including Google Cloud Storage, but also Hadoop and S3 and all the others. That work has gone quite well, and it's usable in all the 4 object storage connectors. So that's really cool. And then in 436, we also had faster selective joins on partition columns. And then there are a few other things that I wanted to mention, and that is, as of 436, we pulled the plug, and we are now requiring JDK 21 to run Trino. We've been requiring to use for build for a little bit already, and the Docker container has been shipping with it for a little bit longer even. Now we require it to run even for, like, basically reinforcing it in the launcher script, and we'll start using language features and that kind of stuff soon. Are you looking forward to that, Martin? Any specific language features in Java 21 you want to?
Yeah, no, that would be, I mean, these guys, we have been waiting for this for a long time, since we updated to 17. There's been a lot of improvements in Java, all the way from Java language improvements to the language itself, a bunch of new APIs in the JDK that simplified some things we were doing. And also like features at the execution, I mean, in the runtime, like for example, better support for highly concurrent workloads with virtual threads. So there are parts of the code base that we're going to be able to modernize with virtual threads. There's a set of APIs for managing memory more elegantly and uniformly, and in a kind of more standard and performant way. So we hope eventually we can migrate to that. But then there's all these language improvements that will make the code base much easier to manage to read. Like there's a whole section. One of the areas I worked in for a long time is the planner, the analyzer, the parser, and all those structures can benefit from some of the features in Java, like sealed classes and pattern matching. So you can write code that is easier to read, easier for someone to jump in and understand. So yeah, very excited about it.
Yeah, I already saw some PRs coming in from David, and I think they changed over to math.clamp. That's also a 21 feature, right? Like one.
Yeah, there are some smaller changes in the APIs that implement things that we had to implement ourselves in the past. So
now it's just
there's one. Yeah, there's one I remember when we implemented support for 128-bit math for faster decimal math. We had to implement multiplication of 128-bit numbers, and we had to simulate some operations that the CPU can implement more efficiently, but there was no way to access that. So I think in Java 18 they added an intrinsic for one of the operations. So that can help. Well, simplifies the code. We don't have to maintain a bunch of complicated code, and also makes performance faster for operations that need multiplication of large numbers.
Yeah, that's crazy. So yeah, lots happening. Anything else from the last releases that you thought was interesting?
Oh, it's been a while. I mean, I think you covered them. Jason.
One thing that came up is the schema evolution. Shout out to Mario's here on the Hive connector. The schema evolution's got much better coverage, and we also documented a lot more. Hive is going away. Yes, and everyone is Iceberg Delta Lake, but it's also not going away because these technologies take a long time to go away. So it's good to keep improving things like that for those people that are still using Hive, and they'll be using Hive for a long time, and that's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
we'll be talking about Hive going away still in 2034, I feel.
Yeah, we made a number of improvements around schema evolution over the last. I mean, I've been seeing a trickle of changes over the last, say, 4 or 5 months. So every release or every couple of releases, we had some improvement to some function around schema evolution. I know just schema evolution is also support for some data type conversions related to schema evolution. Like, for example, if you have a table that contains, numbers, and then you change the schema to interpret that to use some other type, to say a varchar. I don't know if that's a specific conversion that's allowed, but if you don't want to rewrite the whole table, then you need to be able to interpret that data in a different type. Some of those are things that Hive does out of the box, and Trino didn't have, so we've added them. So now behavior is more compatible, or at least similar to what people expect when running queries against Hive data. And then, of course, if you are evolving your schema, changing type, adding columns, deleting columns, that all that helps.
Yeah. Now, lots happening. So let's jump right into what happened in 2023 some more. How about looking at this. It's a bit small, so let me go a bit bigger. Cole, what have you collected here as numbers? You want to tell us about some of those numbers?
Yeah,
It's a bit
so
small, but
I want to give a little behind the scenes real quick. Is if you've paid attention to past Trino annual recaps. So we've had website stats. I don't have access to website stats, so I just did my best. So if you're wondering why they're not there, it's not because they're bad. It's because I can't see them. So by the numbers, we had actually by now we probably do have 65,000 views on YouTube because these numbers I assembled them like a couple weeks ago. We had nearly 6,000 hours watched as part of those 65,000 views. So that's every viewer watching about, what is it? It's 1/10 of an hour, so 6 minutes, which we'll take. We had 5,000 commits on Trino and GitHub, 3,000 new people starring the project, about 1,200 issues created, which was a slight dip down, which I take as a good sign. I feel like slightly fewer issues hopefully means that as a community, we're running into less problems and or have a better understanding of when to create an issue, because a lot of issues shouldn't be created as issues. So that's always good. We had 700 new subscribers on the YouTube channel. We did 45 total videos, so about 4 a month going up on the Trino YouTube channel, though a lot of those were from Trino Summit and Trino Fest, which we'll talk about soon. 30 releases, 40 blog posts, 10 Trino community broadcast episodes, as I mentioned earlier, and then 2 major Trino events in Fest and Summit. So a lot of different things going on. By the numbers, it was a 7% increase in commit, a 7% increase in YouTube viewership, and GitHub stars went up by 50% total. So Trino growing, being developed more actively, and being looked at and watched more.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know about the stars, you have to go to the Trino repository and click the star.
We care about that, by the way.
Yeah.
It's important.
And I can't see for some reason now how many there are. Doesn't it normally show that? Oh,
yeah, I think you were zoomed
9.1K.
Yeah, we should be hitting 10,000 stars this year. So that's a fun milestone. We'll be able to
I'm confident.
pop some party poppers in celebration of.
So you mentioned Summit. What did we have going on there, Cole?
Yeah, so hopefully, ideally, our viewers are familiar with Trino Fest and Trino Summit, as I'm not sure how you'd get into the Trino community broadcast without being aware of our bigger events. But for those who don't know, hypothetically, these are our 2 big Trino events every year. Trino Fest used to be called Cinco de Trino, though we chose to cease theming it after Cinco de Mayo, given the fact that we hosted it in mid-June. And Trino Summit is our major Trino event at the end of each year. Trino Summit has historically been bigger than Fest, but this year they ended up being the same size, both 2-day virtual, fully online events with, I think, 34 different sessions across both of them. So tons of interesting talks, tons of speakers from a ton of different companies. And the list of where those speakers came from is pretty impressive. So,
yeah, what was one of your highlights from the show, from those 2 events, Martin? You did the keynote on each one of them, and obviously some recap and what's going on in the community, but like maybe from the sessions or what the vibe was and stuff like that.
Oh, it's been a while. I think, yeah, it's already paged out of my mind. So, no, but so remember the last one, it was a 2-day event, and which is bigger, longer than other events we've done in the past. And it was interesting to see the variety of talks from all over the place. Like, sometimes you see in this conference like concentrations of talks from one company or 2 companies. Here we had talks from all sorts of different companies with very different use cases. Some were very high level, like how they're solving their problems. Some were a lot more specialized and more detailed. So it was good to see a diversity of topics and talks. So I hope we can maintain that for the next summits.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's been very interesting also to see how people come from and join us from across the globe, and also collaborate from across the globe, right? Like we have people that run projects that work with people in Asia and Europe and the US and work together on some component of it and collaborate on pull requests for features across industries and stuff like that. And it's really cool to see those collaborations come to fruition and get new features into Trino. That's been happening quite good. And shout out to all the speakers. It's been awesome to have you all, and we look forward to have you again. We will be doing a Trino Fest, and details on when that's going to happen are coming soon. We're trying to nail down locations and stuff like that. So when you see here location, that might mean we might be on person somewhere. So we'll see. And of course, at Trino Fest, we also have Commander Banban join us. And by the way, this is the new one. It's gotten bigger.
Bun has grown in size, just like Trino. What do you know?
Yeah, so Trino Fest and Trino Summit were awesome. I really loved it. Was great to host with you as well, Cole. And obviously, shout out to the team in the background, Anna and Mandy and Monica and everyone. It's been awesome, and I love doing them, and we'll do more. Should be cool.
Yeah, and it's for those of you who paid close attention to Trino Summit, Manfred lost power for the second half of day one. I can say I like hosting with Manfred a lot more than I like hosting without Manfred. So I could say the same. It was less fun trying to run the show by myself. So
yeah, I'll try not to get the whole summer power outage.
Yeah, we're gonna need to have a stern talk with the power lines around your house.
Yeah, don't jinx me. By the way, we had just some snow dumps here the last few days, so
Manfred disappears, then don't panic.
The other thing that's really cool, I think, is that this successful summit and fest and other events, other people got inspired and did it too. So we had a community in Seoul have a great meeting. There was a great meeting Yuya organized with others in Japan, in Tokyo. We had one in India. There's a couple of shows going on across the US. Monica is doing Trino on Ice roadshow and things like that. So there's really a lot of different events. Martin, you also went to some places, I hear.
Well, I mean, no. I mean, we're planning.
You went to at least 2 conferences in London, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, that was earlier last year. Yeah, we had a couple of conferences. It wasn't a Trino conference per se, but we gave a couple of talks there. And I mean, I would like to see the community grow larger there. There's a few people that travel from other parts of Europe, but I didn't see a lot of people from London itself. And we're planning, or we're thinking of doing other meetups and talks in Asia this year, hopefully. So we'll see.
Yeah,
well, it's also worth mentioning that the Trino the Definitive Guide was translated into a new language in 2023.
Yeah, 2 actually.
Oh, 2, right. So
yeah, it became available in Polish and in Chinese Mandarin, both the second edition translated, and Yuya is working with a gang of people to get a Japanese edition off the ground, which will hit in the next couple of months from what I hear. So that's really amazing as well.
Yeah, so that's always exciting, because when you have a guidebook and tutorials on how to get everything rolling in another language, it makes it that much more accessible to people who predominantly speak that language. So that should help Trino continue to cross international borders and spread around the globe, which is exciting for us, because the more people you get involved in the community, the better it ends up being. That's the beauty of open source. Yeah,
I think the Slack channels that we have, the general channels for some languages where there's a large enough community like Japanese and Chinese and stuff, have also been pretty useful. So people have active communications there. That I don't always understand what's going on, but I sometimes peek in with Google Translate. All right, what else did we do this last year, Cole?
Yeah, so I feel like the next topic that feels like it's worth addressing is the Trino Gateway, officially releasing for the first time in 2023. Though it's been around in some form for a little while longer, this last year was the first time that it was brought into Trino, given a Trino brand, officially released and supported by the people who support Trino. So that's a big deal. And for those of you who don't know what the Trino Gateway is, there's a talk on it at Trino Summit from three different companies at Starburst, Bloomberg, and Naver who collaborated on it in a pretty big way. But to put it simply, it is a proxy and load balancer for connecting to multiple Trino clusters in one go. So if you're in an organization that needs multiple Trino clusters for workload reasons or for load balancing reasons, or because you want one with fault-tolerant execution and others without, the Trino Gateway is a unified way to access those and split the workload among them, which is a really big deal because multiple clusters in the past has been not very easy to manage and required a lot of manual drudgery to get working right.
Yeah, you need to tell the users to, and for that query, you go to that cluster, which becomes painful. But yeah, no, that's been really exciting. I've been loving working on this project with the people from various companies across the globe. And we actually will have a regular developer sync up now starting next Wednesday and do that every 2 weeks because there's so much going on. We got a contribution from someone in China just popping up and providing a brand new user interface, like a brand new web UI. And we got all the old crappy dependencies out. We upgraded to Java 17. We got Lombok eliminated and stuff like that. So there's lots more going on. And we're hoping to cut another release very soon and then get more into making Docker containers, Helm charts, and like improving the project a lot more. So there's lots going on. It's really exciting. And we, of course, also, thanks to Allison, got a logo for Trino Gateway. So that's good too.
We voted on the wrong logo at Trino Summit, unfortunately, but what are we going to do?
I can completely claim innocence on that one. I was not there because of the power outage.
I tried my best to steer us to the good result, and instead we got the tentacle bun.
It looks a bit like the GitHub octopus, octocat. All right, all good though. So let's talk about some cool features that we had happening in Trino. I want to mention that Trino support for SQL routines. It's been a lot of fun writing the documentation, testing it, getting a Trino SQL training with Martin, Dane, and David off the ground, playing around with them, running the competition for Trino Summit for some more contributions. And it's been really cool. There's still some PRs that will hit even more, but there's a lot. And it's now also hit Starburst Galaxy as a feature, so users can play around with it there. So it's really cool to see this like support to write your function that you need once, publish it into a catalog and use it. You had any messages or reach out from anyone, Martin, about the feature?
Well, I mean, general excitement from people. These are the culmination of a long road. Started, 3-4 years ago, where we decided we wanted to make the way Trino deals with functions more flexible. Because it used to be that in order to write a function, you had to write Java code, and they had to be deployed in your server before the server starts. And there was no way of namespacing them, so you had to make sure all the functions didn't conflict with each other, and so on. And then we said, well, we want to let the connectors be able to provide functions dynamically, so that you can load them after the server has started. And we wanted to namespace them so that we can have different packages of functions. Maybe the same function appears in two packages or schemas with different names, and you may want to have packages like that to have compatibility with different databases. So you may have a substring function that is compatible with Oracle and one that is compatible with MySQL, because you're migrating from one of those databases and you just want to simplify the translation of your queries. And then once we got that, we said, well, eventually we want to be able to let users write their own functions. And the SQL specification has an entire topic around that. So you can define functions in a SQL dialect, or you can define functions in other languages that in some cases are implementation defined. The database can decide what it supports or not. And we want to eventually get to that point. Now we have SQL functions using the SQL dialect, eventually we want to get to possibly allowing users to define functions in JavaScript or Python or some other
assembler.
Assembler. So that will make it even easier for people that are not familiar with SQL to come in and interact with Trino, or port functionality from other places into Trino. So yeah, this is a really good step. It increases the power of what you can do with Trino and how you manage your data infrastructure, your data processes, without having to jump through hoops by going and writing Java code and redeploying your servers every time.
Yeah, and it also feels like it's a great feature for some data engineers helping other data engineers, right? Because you write a function that's like can be quite complicated, and then other people can just invoke it, and that's it, easy peasy, right? So I think that's really cool. Also thought that's cool that you mentioned the migration from other systems, because that reminded me how we had in Starburst, we had Teradata functions and Oracle functions, and they had the same name, and then they couldn't deploy both. And it's like, what a pain that was. So now you can just write them and like have them in a namespace, and all is good. And the other thing that I wanted to also mention, how you're saying they can override built-in functions. So by having the same signature, you can literally replace the behavior of a built-in function, which is kind of cool for those compatibility reasons as well. So very, very cool feature.
I wanted to add that I can say with confidence that namespace functions was a thought as far back as 2018.
That's right. You were an intern in the team at Facebook, and you started working on some of the features. Yeah.
My very first introduction with Trino was, it's not actually how we namespace functions, so it didn't quite go the way we wanted it to. But the goal of what I was working on was to namespace functions. So
yeah, you got thrown in the deep end, man.
That was fun. So, like, this has been 6 years in the making. I think I do get to claim I broke ground on it. And then we were like, hold on a minute, let's build a different foundation and try it that way. But like before construction on this began, I constructed the little shack that got abandoned first.
Yeah. Well, you worked on the language feature that allows you to do that.
Exactly.
SQL path, which is the kind of the language foundation for that.
Yeah. So
another thing
that's been a long time coming, and it's fun to see, like, when I built it, I had a conversation with Dane where he was explaining, like this is what it's doing and this is what it's working to, is user-defined functions. So it's very cool to me to see them finally in Trino, and they're a big deal. If like a function doesn't behave the way you want it to, fix it and make your own.
And we also would love for other people to share their functions. If you've written one that you think is really cool, let us know.
Yeah. So
another thing,
got a lot more features.
I was just going to mention one thing that's come a long time and is also like quite deep in the guts is dynamic catalogs, where, as you mentioned, plugins have to be loaded at the startup and stuff. Dynamic catalogs is kind of similar, right? Like it's derivative of property files with special class loader from the connector and stuff like that. So it also has to happen at startup time of the server. Well, no longer, because Dane has been diving deep into the guts of Trino to get this feature off the ground, and we've got it documented, and people seem to be using it. It's a bit rough around the edges still, but I think it's got a lot of traction, and people are definitely interested in it. What that allows you to do is you can create a catalog to connect to data source and use it straight away across the cluster. And Trino is smart enough to set this up on the coordinator and then distribute that knowledge across to all the workers and do the usual smart querying across in parallel and everything. So it's pretty awesome.
You can also drop a catalog, which
if you messed up.
I feel deleting things is like the most satisfying thing if you're an engineer of any kind. It's don't got to worry about that anymore. And it safely handles it, where every query accessing the catalog will finish up and then it will be removed from Trino. So there's no need to worry about like exploding a query that's mid-flight, but it will get removed eventually. Though we should probably give the caveat, I think this is still technically experimental right now. So
it seems some people are using it in production, but you need to be aware of its shortcuts. of its problems. There's a bit of a memory leak that used to be the case, but I think that's not there anymore because we removed the Hadoop dependencies that caused that. If you're doing like thousands of adds and removals of catalogs, which, I mean, that's kind of crazy anyway. But
Please restart your cluster every once in a while. Just good idea in general.
yeah, I mean, for people that want to adopt this feature, please do reach out to us and let us know how it's going and what problems you're encountering and stuff like that. We do want to improve it even more.
Yeah. What else do we have, Martina? Can I toss the ball to you to discuss Project Hummingbird and the progress we made on that in 2023?
Yeah, I mean that's one of those also one of those umbrella projects. The eventual goal of the project is to make the engine the engine inside Trino be a state of the art, the fastest engine we can possibly build. When we built Trino years ago, we made it as fast as we could at the time, as fast as we needed at the time. I would say it was faster than Hive, faster than a lot of the other open source engines that were around that time, and then we focused on other things. So then over the past few years, the past couple of years or so, we realized, well, there's still a lot of improvement, so room for improvement. So we started focusing on that, and we've been chipping away at the problem. There's some fundamental architectural things we have to change inside Trino to be able to get to the next level. And we made some of those changes, like especially around aggregations. And there was a change that landed, I think it was around September or so last year, that improved the performance of aggregations by 10 to 20%, which is pretty significant. It's actually one of the biggest performance improvements we've done since we re-implemented the ORC reader a few years ago, like 4 years ago. And there's still a lot of things we're planning to do. Eventually, we want to replace how all the operators, the scan, the filter, the projection work, to be able to take advantage of some of the more modern, well, not more modern, but some of the techniques that people are talking about these days around more granular, columnar evaluation, dynamic, the ability to dynamically change the way operators perform internally. To, for example, if you're doing a filter, you may want to rearrange your filters to evaluate the cheapest, most selected filters first, and leave the most expensive ones until later, which is something we cannot do dynamically right now. We can do some static adjustments during planning. And then in general, overall revamp how the core execution works to take advantage of some features that are coming up. Like we talked about Java 21, where there's a new set of APIs that allow you to leverage SIMD instructions. So there are places where we can benefit from that. So we want to be able to take advantage of that. So anyway, it's still an ongoing project, and there's still a long road ahead, but we made a bunch of headway last year.
That's good to see.
Because it's if you're like a data scientist or an analyst on the far end of this, when I was using Trino pretty actively, like I remember there were tips and tricks for like how to optimize your queries, where it's like, okay, like you want to order your joins in this specific way. So like as the person writing the SQL query on the end user side of things, you're trying to think about how to like guide the engine towards the faster results. But like with all these improvements and optimizations and ways of considering filters, it's suddenly like less and less necessary for a user to be aware of it, because the engine just gets smart enough to make those optimizations itself, which makes it easier to use on top of being faster, which I think is kind of a great double whammy. It's, there's this world of optimizing a SQL query that becomes less and less relevant, and this world of my SQL query runs faster. So everyone wins.
Yeah, and of course you also mentioned the improvements from the org reader being written as a native reader. We also now have like completely rewritten native Parquet reader and like all the other formats that came in, and all those benefit all our four Lakehouse connectors, so Delta Lake, Iceberg, Hudi, and Hive. So that's been a lot of change in that, and that's been really beneficial as well. So we can get rid of some of the old libraries from the Hadoop project, and that's been really exciting. Some of the other Lakehouse improvements also include lots more system data hidden tables, which is kind of amazing to see, right? Like you can sort of like in Trino, not just query the data, but also find out like, you know, what file was actually queried for that data, and with properties tables, and do change data capture kind of like information in Delta Lake and Iceberg and others. So it's been really cool to see all these improvements on the Lakehouse. So Trino really is a great platform to run your Lakehouse these days.
Yeah, it's timeline, system table in Hudi. There's table changes as a function in Delta Lake, and Iceberg is like just teeming with metadata. It's built on mountains of metadata. So whatever metadata you want to know, it's probably there and accessible in Trino.
Yeah, on the other side that I think is cool that we did is we got this like register table and unregistered table procedures going, so that basically telling Trino about an externally already existing table isn't so weird. So you don't sort of like have to know the path, like and like sort of like create a table when actually it's already there. You just have to sort of like it's more natural now, and I think that's much better. So that's really cool. And those are all the improvements. Of course, there's lots more in the Trino community broadcast. We always talk about the releases, and you can check the release notes out to learn more. But we also had improvements in other things outside of Trino itself, Cole.
Yeah, we had a lot of new clients announce support for Trino this year. I think it's easiest to start with the Python clients of Fugue and Ibis and PyTrino, just the Trino official Python client, all of which were big deals for 2023. So the Trino Python client had existed for a while, but this year we took some time to look at it, update it, cut a few releases, get it onto SQL Alchemy 2.0, and make it more of a realistic way to work with Python and run Trino in it. Which of course you want to do if you're like a Python data scientist, but you want that performance of an actual Java query engine, because for big data, Python ends up being not the most performant thing in the world, is my diplomatic approach to discussing that. But so Fugue and Ibis, on top of that, they spoke at Trino Fest this year, and they kind of do this translation from Python code into Trino SQL. So you don't even need to know how to write SQL. If you use the Fugue or Python APIs and know their functions, then they can write your SQL for you and execute Trino so that you get advantage of that speed without even having to learn SQL if you're unfamiliar with it. So, you know, we're in the SQL space, but we don't have to be if you don't want to learn.
Yeah, and all of those are also available on the website. You can see here, there's a lot of them here, and you can find more information about each one of them. So like, for example, Cookinity here, we had a Trino community broadcast with them, and that's linked here. So for each one of them, you can find out more and check out if you want to use Trino queries and write them in Emacs, you can, or in Visual Studio Code or whatever, right? So there's lots and lots of cool things going on. Recently, the last one that we added and that was interesting to me was Rust. So there's a Rust client library that seems to be actually quite performant and used in some products that we'll talk about in some upcoming Trino community broadcast episodes as well. So really exciting to see all the developments in the community here. And of course, we also have support for lots and lots of data sources and lots of add-ons coming more and more and more. So very exciting.
Yeah, I think there's two more. It's Popsicle, which we also did a Trino community broadcast with, or Popsicle or whoever. And then there's also a TypeScript client that was published in 2023, which I personally am a fan of because I really like imagining the intersection of high-powered, massive-scale data analytics and front-end web development. That intersection is a very cursed place, in my opinion, but a very fun one. So,
well, it can't always
if you
be
find
easy
yourself in that location, there is something for you.
Fair enough. Yeah, so that was the client ecosystem. And as with Trino Gateway and other projects, the community has also been bringing up more and more different, Helm charts got improved that we have. Other people created operators and stuff like that. So there's always more going on in the community. It's really great to see. And of course, all the discussion happens on Slack. Or a lot of it anyway. What else did we want to talk about, Cole? I think we're getting pretty close. One thing I wanted to mention, a highlight for me, was that I became a Trino maintainer, which is a burden and an honor. It definitely keeps you busy, but it's been very enjoyable to do that. Thank you, Martin and Dane and David, to bestowing that honor on me. I've been really enjoying doing the work on Trino Gateway and the website and code reviews and release notes and stuff like that. So it's been really good. And also, it's been also really great to see James Petty join us from AWS and Mateusz Gajewski from Starburst. So the group of maintainers is growing, and that's definitely also something that we need. We have a lot going on in the project. I just did a PR backlog grooming, and there is always more help we can get. So if anyone is interested in helping the project more, please do help out, do reach out, help on the reviews, chime in, and maybe we'll get some more maintainers in 2024. No promises, though. That's up to Martin and David, but I'm just saying.
You don't get to make that decision. Well, we also added, what was it? It was the concept of the sub-project maintainer was something new to Trino. It's because Trino has so many different things under its hood officially now, in the form of the gateway and the Python client and the website and whatever else. So now you can be a maintainer of just one of those things without necessarily being a maintainer of the actual core Trino engine.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that we have, as you said, we have different focus areas that are sometimes very different from each other. Like the Python client has almost nothing to do with, say, the some of the connectors. So people are familiar with Python. It requires a different set of skills too. So that's why we decided, okay, it makes sense to have people that focus on specific areas, that's their passion, their interest, and that's why we went that way.
Yeah, seems to be working so far.
That's to say, if you don't want to learn the intricacies of a massive Java engine, there's other ways you can help out in smaller bite-sized projects you can contribute to if you'd like. So there's lots of different ways to get involved. It's easier than ever, and we'd be happy to have you.
So rounding out, I have to ask you, Martin, what's your wish for 2024 on Trino?
Oh,
put you on the spot.
Put me on the spot. I mean, I know there's so many things we're working on. I want to see more progress on Hummingbird. I think there's now with Java 21, we get the opportunity to start exploring and experimenting with some of the features that will let us build more performant code. So I hope we make a bunch of progress there. Yeah, and then I as every year I want to see more people using it, like community growing larger. I want to see more people talking about Trino and helping evangelize Trino. So I mean, it's always been like a small set of people that have been doing that in the past few years, and a lot of people are getting value out of it. So I hope people are more brave and can share their stories and help others learn about Trino and join this community and this group of users and developers.
Yeah, that lines very much up with what I love doing and what I hope for the community. I've been really enjoying all the collaborations we had on various projects, and I'm hoping we can pull in even more contributors in and more users and get more integration going. It's been very exciting to see, like, our Rust client. I'm like, what? Okay. And it's working really well. So it's really amazing to see that, and I love that. So it should be really good. What about you, Cole?
I want more people evangelizing specifically fault-tolerant execution. I think Trino has built itself up reputation as being such a great like analytics ad hoc query engine, but now it can really do everything. And it's historically, people have said they use this stack where they have Trino for one thing and Spark for another thing, and no more Spark.
Yeah, it feels like really like those things really are coming together, right? Like with Gateway, you can have multiple clusters. With FTE, you can have one of them really running stable. The storage for the exchange spooling is becoming more and more versatile and powerful and performant as well. So yeah, it might be really coming together. I mean, there was a talk at Trino Summit where someone has brought that into production. So it is possible to use this, and it is really great, and like there were tremendous improvements. So
yes, that's what I want to see. Is I want to hear more people specifically hyping that up, because no longer do you need like these complicated multi-technology stacks. I mean, you're still gonna need some things, but
but like
you don't need 3 query engines anymore. It's we really can do it all here at Trino. So that's my push for 2024.
And if anyone finds any obstacles for that with Trino, they should let us know.
Yeah,
maybe we have to write some more SQL functions.
Yeah, we'll
by just using routines, right? Awesome. Well, I think that's been great. I'm really looking forward to this 2024. It's already started great with our first release. We're gonna plop another one over probably next week, and we'll ship a Trino Gateway. We'll do Trino Gateway developer syncs. We'll probably do some contributor congregation soon as well. So lots of stuff already lining up. It's going to be another exciting year for the bunny.
And the bunny is just slightly bigger now. That's important to remember. Is if you find a way to get some Trino swag in your hands, Commander Bun Bun.
Yeah, let's just not get to a were rabbit or something. All right, cool. I think that's a wrap.
Yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. Most of you on demand, we still appreciate it. And thank you to Martin for joining us for this episode of the Trino Community Broadcast. We'll see you all soon, as we've got a few more Trino Community broadcasts lined up in the near future. So it won't be long before you see us again.
Exactly.
Music for the show is from the Mega Man 6 gameplay album by Krzysztof Sławikowski. Don't forget to give us a star on the Trino repository at github.com/TrinoDB/Trino. And for more information on future shows and to find show notes, check out trino.io/broadcast.